Hello everyone, this is Ethan Brown, a student at Shawnee State University, and I'm going to showcase my vertical slice for my senior project titled Shackled Souls. The most effective way to introduce Shackled Souls is through its razor statement, which is as follows. It is an intense fight for survival in an evolving environment where every second counts. To ensure that the requirements for this razor statement were met, I split my game and the development of it up into four main pillars. The first of which is that time is crucial. The second being that you need to evolve to become stronger. The player also needs to be able to express their play style. And the final pillar is that there will be divergent environments available. Before I delve deeper into how I implemented these pillars into Shackled Souls, I'd like to take a minute to talk about the inspirations that I had for the game, starting off with the Binding of Isaac, the most prevalent on the list. Uh, it heavily inspired how I handled my generation, as well as enemy design and enemy difficulty. Whenever I say enemy design, I don't mean so much on the art side. I mean how they handle AI and how as the stages go on, the AI becomes more difficult to play around. Now, Enter the Gungeon, this is where I pulled from for my art style. It's not quite as cartoony as an Isaac, but it does still have that pixel art theme to it, like in Enter the Gungeon. Hades, I pulled a lot of inspiration from that for my combat system, just how fast-paced it is, constantly dashing everywhere, and like with the power progression, like how you can get boons to upgrade your spells and abilities. I took inspiration from that for evolutions in Shackled Souls. Talking about the inspirations for Shackled Souls is important because it gives you guys an idea of what the game is going to feel like and what direction I'm taking the game in, and the reason why I picked out the goals that I did pick. So with all of that in mind, I can now show you guys the goals that I had set out for the project, which is basically split into two categories, the player experience and my own personal goals. For the player experience, this is essentially the reason why I had the pillars set up the way that they were set up. And to hit each point, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I implemented each one of those player experience points. So starting off with fast-paced combat, there's going to be several enemies on the screen. There's going to be a lot of projectiles coming at you. There shouldn't be a time in the game whenever you're standing still. You're going to be constantly dashing around, dodging, and trying to kill the enemies. For rewarding power spikes, every time you kill an enemy, you take their souls and store up power and evolve and get stronger. Harsh obstacles. The game is harsh because every time you die, you get set back to the beginning and you lose all of your progress. And sense of control is handled through player choices such as choice and evolution at the end of each stage, as well as choice and characters and the different abilities that they have. As for my personal goals with Shackled Souls, it can mainly be summarized in having a newfound respect for scope. I never really had a reference point before for what I could get done in a set amount of time, especially on a project of this size. This one took about 30 weeks total from start to finish. So after this project, I've mainly gained experience of having a large scope and understanding what I can and can't get done in that time, as well as how necessary that certain game design patterns are in the long run whenever you're developing a project this big. Now that you see what goals I had set and kind of where my mindset was for development of this game, I'm going to brush up a little bit on the timeline. So for the first semester, the first half, the first 15 weeks, I was mainly concerned with just getting the initial game loop. And in this game loop, I needed to have the procedural generation, which is what took the majority of the time and was probably the most difficult part to implement. And then character design, this goes with character abilities and enemy design, as well as the evolution system. So, enemy design and character design, I was not really worried about the art for them yet, just mainly about how they play and how the character controller works and how the enemies interact with the character. And then to finish up that semester, I was just getting started on the combat system fundamentals. Ideally, for the second semester, it would mainly be all polish, but I was running a little bit behind. So I spent some time polishing out combat depth and implementing things like status effects. And then I went on to the second stepping stone, which was player choice. So this is where you get the things like evolution selection and character selection. And those two things took the majority of the second semester. And then I spent probably about the last month or so working on sound design and polish for the game. And here we are now at the vertical slice. So just a few things left to touch up on before I start the showcase. I'm going to conclude with the fact that the goals for the project were met. So remember, I had the player experience and my personal goals. For the player experience, those were just the implementation of the pillars. So that's time is crucial, with which I have implemented with live terrain and fast-paced combat. I have evolved to become stronger, which is what happens whenever you kill the enemies and you collect their souls to get power. And then you have the end of level evolutions as well. Divergent environments, that's handled with the procedural generation. Express your playstyle, that's your choice in evolutions and your choice in characters. Now, with that, I did have a little bit of scoping issues with my depth of development for each of these features, and I had a lack of assets as well, but that kind of plays back into my personal goals of figuring out what I could get done in the set scope that I had. And it just happened to be that my scope was a little too big. So that's something that going into future projects I can correct myself on. So, going into the showcase, we have each character's abilities that'll be showed off, the core game loop that'll show off the pillars that I just mentioned, and you're going to get to see the combat system as well. If you guys liked what you saw or you're interested in the project, you can try it out in the ATC. The build is available there, or on your own computer, you can actually download the build. The link to the GitHub download will be in the description of the video below. And I've decided that I will continue development in the future. So if you guys are interested in following that, the Twitter for the project is Shackled Souls underscore, and the YouTube is Shackled Souls. And as always, thanks for your time and thanks for watching.